According to Mr. O'Reilly on page 108 in our book, and I am going to suggest that you take a look at that page, Confucianism guides us in public life. It stresses social responsibility and obligations to the other citizens of our community. It focuses on the here and now. In contrast, Mr. O'Reilly talks about Taoism as guiding our private life or our spiritual life. Those who study philosophy and religion often see Confucianism and Taoism as opposites. I tend to look at Taoism as an antidote, as something that helps to balance out the formal qualities of Confucianism. What this might imply, and you would be correct in thinking this, is that if you live in China, because these are opposites and vastly different, that you could select a little from each of them according to your own interpretations and ideas to help you both publicly and privately. And in fact, that is the way things actually work. There's an incredible openness in the East that allows people to embrace more than one philosophy, more than one religion. Taoism for us is particularly important because it is a source of inspiration in the arts, especially in landscape, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. Okay, so there are a couple ways to spell this. Transliterations from Chinese. The pronunciation I'm giving you, this is my pronunciation, hoping to make it easier, Taoism. The Tao is just Tao, as in down. And the master associated with this is Lao Tzu. And again, that is my pronunciation that I'm incorporating into this. You might find another if you actually look it up in a dictionary. What that translates to is Old Master. And this is a painting depicting Lao Tzu. We don't know if he was real. In fact, there's a tendency to believe that he was the legendary founder of Taoism, which means the way of nature. It was a reactionary movement, moving away, breaking from some of Confucian principles by stressing spontaneity and rejecting the formality of Confucian teachings and the concern with how we behaved publicly. As a part of Taoism, we turn to nature as a source of inspiration. And we're going to do this directly and personally. And that is going to, in part, be through encounters with nature. In other words, get out of your house, go into the landscape, and also definitely through meditation. Our goal is to connect with the Tao. We wish to connect with the Tao. We wish to share the harmony of the Tao. So I think now is the time to ask, what is the Tao? Okay, what is the Tao and where can we get some of this? Because this sounds like good stuff. I've given you a series of definitions that might help you to understand what the Tao actually is. It is a principle of the universe. It is an impersonal force. It is sometimes referred to as the primal essence of the universe or the natural order of everything. I've underlined a couple of these that I particularly like that make it, at least in my case, easy for me to relate to or attempt to understand the Tao. It is an impersonal force, the source of everything, of all things, and of life. If by this point you're saying, well, I'm not sure I can ever really understand this, guess what? You're not really supposed to. It can't be totally known. It is formless, it is nameless, and again, I have to say it is an impersonal force. The one that I like best on my list is life force animating the universe. And I guess for me, that is something that's particularly easy to understand. It is eternal, it is enduring, it is unchanging, it's always been, it always will be. It is an unending power. It is spiritual, it's not matter. And I have a quote here, the ordering principle behind life, combining both yin and yang, within it. Okay, the Tao is everywhere, it is in us, and if we wish to connect with it and perhaps enhance the Tao that we actually possess, the best thing that we can do is to approach it through nature. This automatically suggests to you that it is private, it is personal, and it is functioning in a somewhat unorganized manner. Qi is a manifestation of the Tao, and it is something we can actually see in artworks that perhaps suggest the energy of the Tao. If you wish to study Taoism, the best thing to do is get a hold of the Tao Te Ching, which is the work of, at least traditionally considered to be the work of Lao Tzu, who before leaving China was convinced to write down his teachings in a single place. And he did this and then immediately got on his buffalo and went off to Tibet. This is all tradition. We in fact believe that Lao Tzu is a legendary figure and that the Tao Te Ching is probably a compilation of writings from various sources. It is, however, the most revered source in Taoism. It does talk about yin and yang, which we know existed even before Lao Tzu or the Tao Te Ching in China, but it is a fundamental concept within Taoism. So I thought I would just give you one of the chapters of the Tao Te Ching that will give you a little bit of a sense of what this textbook is like and maybe give you a flavor for Taoism in general. Okay, let's go. And this is on chapter 42, which does deal with yin and yang. The Tao is the one. From the one come yin and yang. From these two, creative energy. From energy, 10,000 things, the forms of all creation. All life embraces the yin, all life embraces the yang, and through their union, achieving harmony. This is more or less the flavor of the Tao Te Ching. It also clearly specifies the significance of yin and yang and the way in which they work together, helping to set into motion the Tao and the world and you and me. I picked this in part because I like the depiction because the edges aren't neat and clear, and yin and yang, according to traditional Chinese beliefs, yin and yang do overflow from one to the other. They connect and they need each other to create totality and to help us to achieve harmony. These are illustrations, more traditional perhaps, illustrations of yin and yang. And I have a number of them up here. The one right here is the one that you're most used to seeing, but you can also do it with other types of designs. And I like this one as well, the dragon, which is the male element, and the phoenix, which is the female element, as they circle a pearl. The pearl referencing purity and preciousness. The one lower right breaks down the two um, sections for us, yin and yang, so that you can actually see what it is that they're believed to represent. And yes, the yang is the male. It's positive, it's heaven, it's spring, and it's summer, as opposed to the female, which is negative, which is earth, which is autumn, and which is winter. These qualities, these entities, these things, however, cannot exist without the opposite, and they are interconnected so that in the yin portion, which is dark here, you can see a white circle, and that represents the yang. So the interconnection and the flow of these helps to charge the energy of the universe. I have another quote for us from Lao Tzu. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. I pick this because it might give you a sense of what the Tao Te Ching actually reads like. It doesn't have crispness of clarity. You have to interpret. You have to Be spontaneous in your responses. It is not cut and dry as a Confucian teaching might be, so that you have to react very personally, intuitively, and perhaps without the boundaries of society. Taoism is going to break into two branches. Both of these are going to use meditation. Meditation is crucial in Taoism. The first one is going to be philosophical, and that's going to be the early form of Taoism. And it's going to be based on the writings of Lao Tzu, which we just kind of took a little bit of a look at. If you're interested, pick up the Tao Te Ching. It's a very small book, but it is a very, I'm going to say, interesting and challenging read. The second form of Taoism is religious. This develops later. We're kind of used to this evolution of religion. It is sometimes also referred to as popular Taoism, partly because it is a very comforting form of Taoism. In the religious form of Taoism, our goal is to obtain immortality. And we think that this develops out of the early foundation that we've already encountered in China, which would be shamanism and folk religion, coming together to give us a set of principles that might indeed allow us to live forever. Not a bad goal. This is a Taoist work of art. It is figure 411 in Mr. O'Reilly, and what it depicts is a mountain. It is a censer, in other words, it's an incense burner. It is also one of the many examples, the earliest examples of landscape, which in China were actually created in three-dimensional form. The word landscape derives from the Chinese characters for mountain and water, and these were often set into bowls. If you go over here, you're going to see the bowl, so that you literally would have the mountain up above, and that bowl would be filled with water below. So you have these two elements, in some ways opposite elements, coming together in the form of the censer. You'll often in your readings encounter the terms the cult of mountains or the cult of sacred mountains in China. Mountains were considered to be mystical places, to be divine places, places associated with the divine. And I'm incorporating one photograph in the top right of Taishan, Mount Taishan, which is a mountain that I happened to visit when I was in China, so that I can speak with some authority saying these are mystical when you go to see them. They're made out of karst limestone that erodes and creates as water washes part of the mountain away, creating very craggy forms, tall and craggy, which often are mist covered. So they are appropriate sources for the idea of the mystical associated with mountains. The mountains also are the place where the earth touches the heavens, the highest point. For Taoists, the mountains in particular became references for the home of the immortals, that there was a place, a mountain where people live forever and where the Taoist divine beings dwelled. And that's what these incense burners represent. They also, and it's a little bit tough to see, but they also generally have life forms in them. That would be animals and perhaps humans that inhabit the mountainous forms. So this would be the peak here. And I'd like you to see all of the shapes that seem to move upward. I'd also like you to see the curving forms that have been incorporated on the surface of the, and this particular one is bronze, on this bronze vessel. This is gilding on the surface, and that would be qi. That would be a reference to the energy of the Tao and the power of the Tao. And this whole object seems to be filled with a kind of pulsing energy. It is an incense burner, so what I would like you to imagine is this originally sitting in a bowl of water, linking water and earth and sky. As the incense burns, you have to imagine the smoke coming up around the incense burner, looking very much like the mountains that would be mist covered.